happy Friday, everybody. Cinephile Mike is here, and it is day 37 of Oscar Rewind, my series of video reviews and commentary that reflect the work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. I dig deep into those IMDb profiles, and my hope is that you will discover a new, older favorite, or maybe revisit something you haven't seen in a while. As always, I'll be discussing the recent Oscar connection, awards history for the film, box office information, and the critical response. And as always, these reviews are spoiler-free. But do me a favor before we jump in, click that subscribe button because you don't want to miss anything coming your way here on the channel. So, to wrap up this week, we are going to look at another Disney Pixar film. A Disney film, not Pixar, and fitting that I do this one given that its remake is currently sitting at the number 2 spot for the 2025 calendar year, and looks highly unlikely to be unseated. I don't think it's going to get to the number 1. If you follow me on Facebook, you see that Ninja 2, the film coming out later in August, is holding that number 1 spot. But, hey, number 2, not bad. I'm talking about the original, though, Walt Disney's 2002 animated hit, Lilo and Stitch. Written and directed by the team of DeBlois and Chris Sanders, the film was released in the summer of 2002, and by the end of its original theatrical run, the film made $145,794,338 domestically, and an additional $127,349,813 internationally. Then, we need to add a small international re-release where the film made an additional $1,602,359. So in total, this film sits with a current worldwide total of $274,746,510. Now, adjusting for inflation, that is almost $500 million. And fun fact, it still doesn't match this year's remake, which currently sits with over $1 billion. Critically, the film sits opposite its current form. The critical rating for the original is 86% from 155 reviews, where this current remake has a 72% from 213. And with the audience scores, while still good for both, it's a 78% culled from over 250,000 audience reviews for the original, but over 10,000 audience reviews on the new one give the remake a score of 92%. So it's interesting that the audience seems to prefer the live action and the critics prefer the original. Always interesting to see how this shakes out. Which do I prefer more? Let's get into it. Now, award season-wise for this original film, it ended its season with an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. It was also a Best Animated Feature nominee at the Critics' Choice Awards, and its biggest showing was at the Annie Awards, where it had 10 nominations in varied categories, including Best Feature, Writing, Directing, and a sole win for Davy Chase for outstanding voice acting in an animated feature production for voicing Lilo. All this was in addition to several other nods and wins across varied festivals. Now, Chris Sanders, the reason we're here, is having a pretty good couple years. This year, he received his 4th Oscar nod for the outstanding animated feature, The Wild Robot. And this year, he revived both Lilo and Stitch with its live-action remake, and also, as of this posting and recording, his live-action update of his own How to Train Your Dragon is also in the top 10 at the box office for the year. His script for Lilo and Stitch animated in 2002 resulted in his first Oscar nod. So, I'm sure most of you know this film, but I will get into a quick synopsis anyway. Lilo, voiced by Davy Chase, is just trying to find a friend. Bullied by her peers and struggling to live life with her sister and adoptive caregiver Nani, voiced by Tia Carrere, after losing their parents, life is hard. Nani struggles to maintain a job and keep the roof over their heads. Lilo means well, but, causes constant struggles, and this is not so great when the social worker, Mr. Bubbles, the ever-present and enjoyable voice of Ving Rhames, shows up. Nani has to figure things out while also juggling her feelings for local surfer David, voiced by Jason Scott Lee. Meanwhile, out in space, Stitch, or Experiment 626, voiced by Sanders, he likes to do a lot. He's deemed a little too dangerous and imprisoned on the order of the Grand Councilwoman, voiced by Zoe Caldwell, despite the arguments of Stitch's creator, Jumba, voiced by multiple Disney vet David Ogden Stiers. Escaping in a ship bound for Earth, Stitch ultimately gets caught and sent to the Animal Adoption Center. Jumba gets sent to recapture him with Pleakley, voiced by Kevin McDonald, and this needs to be accomplished before the ever more domineering presence of Captain Gantu, voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, has to step in. Through a series of events, Lilo will adopt Stitch, and he will become her new friend, and as the two discover the meaning of Ohana, family, as they try to circumnavigate a life together, there will be some challenges as Nani tries to make a future possible before, social services steps in. And the attempts by Jumba and Pleakley to catch Stitch and return him home, that's also in the mix. I'm not going to lie. When I first saw this film, and it was not when it first came out in 2002, it was several years ago, I wasn't as impressed the first time I watched it. I know I'm kind of in the minority there. And then when the remake was announced, I decided to go back and rewatch this one before I went in, just so that it was fresh, so I could compare. And I had to say, rewatching this before seeing the remake, well, yes, this one is superior to the action. I actually found that I enjoyed this one a lot more than I did the first time. The bright color palette brings, Hawaii alive. And I'd say Chase and Carrere, their vocal performances have a wonderful back and forth that really recalls any sibling banter you might have heard. And while Space Invasion is nothing new to Disney, there was a clever approach here to show the universal theme of family, and they execute it fairly well. Perhaps we don't need quite an intricate action sequence in the third act, but, hey, we have to catch the action-going audience somehow, right? And that has always been, kind of Disney's challenge, is finding the balance to speak to all members of their audience. But that aside, this really is a charming film. The voice cast is excellent, and, one has to wonder if they recorded all at the same time, or if the editing is really that stellar, because the dialogue flowed so naturally. More so, it didn't feel stunted. I also want to recognize that this was the pocket of time when Disney was trying to be more original, coming out of the 90s, where while they'd had hit after hit, some of the later ones didn't. And, not every swing they did hit. Think Dinosaur, Treasure Planet, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Some of those are great, but they just didn't really hit the way they wanted to. But Lilo and Stitch started to bring them out of that rut. Part of it could be the adorableness that Sanders brought to Stitch. He is quite endearing and grows on you. Sanders and DeBlois, both with long track records at Disney, proved themselves worthy with this very clever script that knows how to blend childhood innocence with, the struggles of, single parents. Also, in the alien races, there's a unique political story buried quite well when we look at, regulations and dangers of experimentation that goes too far. So there's also something there. In all, I have to say, if you had asked me a few years ago after I watched this the first time, I probably would have said Lilo and Stitch was a 3-star film, like I did for the remake. But after a good rewatch, I have to say that this is a strong 4-star film. It has all of the elements of a Disney film you look for, with the exception of, original musical numbers. Although I will say, the constant presence of Elvis music, not gonna lie, I hit an Elvis playlist after watching this. If you would like to catch Lilo and Stitch, it is currently streaming on Disney+. And if you would like to watch the remake, it is actually still playing in some select theaters and available for digital purchase or rental. The streaming date on Disney Plus is not known yet. All right. Enjoy your weekends, everyone. I will be back next week with the remaining writers in the set and then moving into the next theme. As always, if you like what you heard here, please click that button, subscribe to the channel, like and share the video, spread the word. You can follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all social media platforms and on Letterboxd, and find lots of great additional content on my website, cinephilemike.com. All right. Happy watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.